Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. Coming up, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of Saratoga Springs. The DVC Show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. You'll save thousands of dollars on your next DVC contract when you let the experts at the DVC Store help welcome you home. Visit them online at www.dvcstore.com or call 1-800-550-6493. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friend, Sean Falk.
Hi.
Jackie Gailey.
Hi, guys.
From the DVC Store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
Hello.
Joining us via Skype, as always, Mr. Pete Scheidley.
Hey, everybody.
And back in the production nook, our associate producer, Mr. Corey Fiescanaro.
Welcome home.
Well, welcome, folks. Hope your week is off to a good start. Even though it's Monday, if it is off to a good start, there's plenty of time left for it to go south. Just thought I'd be Mr. Happy Fun Guy to start off our show. Just a couple things in housekeeping. We've been reminding everybody in these shows that DVC Store, if you have points that you want to rent out, DVC Store is now paying $15.50 per point. That is a great price to get. If you want to offset your annual dues, if you have points that you're not going to use this year, if you want to use your points to do something else, like reaching out to Dreams Unlimited for a cruise. We tell people all the time, never use your points directly through Disney for things like that, for cruises, Adventures by Disney. It's a horrible waste of money. I think I was figuring out that it's about, when you do it through Disney, you're getting about $8 a point. For that. So when you think about that, you can, do that stuff through Disney for $8 a point or rent them out for $15.50 a point through DVC Store and get a lot more for your money when you're doing that. So dvcstore.com or give them a call, 1-800-550-6493. Also going to throw in a plug for my blog, dvcfan.com. We have some a little bit of merchandise that we've just started putting up on the site. We're adding more. We're adding some really cool stuff. As a matter of fact, recording one of the other shows, Will just sent through a new design for Boulder Ridge, which looks amazing. So we'll be adding new stuff to it all the time. But dvcfan.com, some great articles from our contributors going up there. We're always looking for contributors. And of course, a plug for our forums on disboards.com. The DVC forums on Disboards are amazing, a wealth of information, so you can head over there and check that out. Okay, so we are going to be doing the pros and cons of Saratoga. This was another one of Sean's ideas, and it's funny that the ideas you have seem to be the most popular shows we end up doing. Sucks Doesn't Suck, those are always huge shows.
Yeah, we need to do another one of the tier. I don't know. What are they called?
Fiasco's tier list thing.
Tier
that
list,
did really well.
I got a couple ideas in the back of my mind to do with that in the future.
Let's bring them to the front of our minds, and we'll do those.
Roger.
But this was another one. The pros and cons of the DVC resorts have been really popular, and we're turning our attention this week to one of the more maligned DVC resorts at Walt Disney World, Saratoga Springs. I tend to feel that malignment, if that's a word, is unfair overall. I understand why people refer to it as the resort of last resort. It doesn't have the sizzle of some of the other DVC resorts. But let's talk about it. Jerry, you own at Saratoga. Well, technically, so do I. But you own at Saratoga. What are some of the pros and cons for you of that resort?
I mean, I purchased Saratoga Springs because it's the best value. Like, I've never stayed there. I bought in 2004. I've never stayed there.
Why?
Because I usually get reservations at other resorts, and I never book more than 7 months out, so I'm just looking around. And I'm not opposed to Saratoga. I'd love to stay there. I'd like to check out the Treehouse Villas. Those are the bungalows that are kind of in the woods. But in terms of the resorts, I've got a 5-year-old, and Disney Springs is phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot to offer there. But for a 5-year-old, he's not really, he doesn't care about the restaurants and the entertainment and the things that are over there. So I usually stay closer to the parks. But I bought for value. I think maintenance fees, one of the best you can get. Purchase price, one of the lowest out there. The extended deed, 2054, versus 2042 on some of the others. So I bought it for value, and I've loved it. It's worked perfect for what I need it for.
Now, Jackie, you own there as well.
I do, yeah. And I happen to really love Saratoga Springs. So what I love about it is I love the soft pastel colors. It's just soothing to me. I love how gorgeous the grounds are. It makes me feel like I'm not at Disney. And while I absolutely love the Grand Floridian, I love Animal Kingdom Lodge, I love the Contemporary, there's not really a resort at Disney that I don't love. So let's just do it shorter and sweeter. But I really happen to love Saratoga. I love the details that are just in and out of everywhere. There's a lot of bus stops throughout the resort, so I don't even care that it's big. And it's just one of those places that, maybe it's because it's the first, or it was the second resort that I stayed at on my second trip to Disney. But the tree houses really hold a special place in my heart too. And so I love that I can book one of those 11 months in advance if I need to. Although our family has just outgrown those. So my sister-in-law's having another baby. So we won't be able to stay at one of those anymore. But that's okay because I still really like it. I like that they made that walkway over to Disney Springs. I like that when you get some of the resort, some of the certain buildings, you have a great view of Disney Springs. And even if you don't, it's a pretty view. I mean, I just think it's a nice place to stay. It doesn't remind me of a hotel. It reminds me of just a homey spot. There's elevators in every building, and it just feels like home to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
The pros for me, I do like that it's so close to Disney Springs. That's a real plus. Now, especially now that Disney Springs has finished its renovations and it's what it's supposed to be, the close proximity to that is a big plus. I also think the new rooms are beautiful.
Yeah.
The old rooms, they're rehabbing the resort right now, so by the end of the year they should be done converting all the rooms. The old rooms were pretty beat up. Mm-hmm. They were pretty beat up. And so, but I do think it's a beautiful resort. I do think it's too spread out on the cons list. I think it's too spread out. I think I'm the only person that the tree houses have no appeal to me whatsoever.
Really?
None.
They
I
don't
feel
appeal
like
to
it's
me.
kind of like a glamping experience. Like you're not really
have you
next
seen
to
have you-
anything.
We'll see what they look like when the rehab is over. There's nothing glamorous about the
like a
decor in those
cabin.
It's
places.
like a cabin,
Log cabin.
It's kind of like a Smurf village,
Reminds me of home. I'm from Seattle, so I guess that's why it feels like home to me.
Spent a lot of time in tree houses in Seattle, baby.
Well, the trees that are all around, it's
Yeah, the trees are fun to look at. I don't want to live in them.
right.
Personally.
Yeah.
Also, a huge negative, the biggest one I have. The food at Saratoga
Yeah.
Springs is beyond awful.
Yeah.
The food court is terrible. Turf Club is terrible. And not just because these places are they're walking distance to Disney Springs. You have to compete with that. Even if that comparison wasn't in the mix. It's just bad. So the food and beverage person at Saratoga Springs, in my humble opinion, needs to either go back to culinary school or get fired and replaced with somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, because it is just bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Turf Club. I personally do enjoy Artist Palette, but I know I'm the odd man out there. Haley doesn't like it either. She's always like, "Why'd you take me here?" whenever we go there. But as far as the proximity to Disney Springs, I give that as a pro for about half of the resort, but the other half you're really not in very close walking distance. But with that being said as a negative, I'd also put the bus system as a negative too, because there's so many additional stops that you have to take in order to get to your destination, unless you're at the very, very front of the bus route. But along with the pros, next to the other things you guys already mentioned, like proximity to Disney Springs and the great value on the contracts itself, I would also like to add that the rooms, I think, are a huge pro. It has that home away from home, homey type feeling, like you actually have your own little apartment in Disney. I think with all the resorts I've stayed at, that's probably the biggest thumbs up I would give to Saratoga, along with a thought that I had was for teenagers, that families that are coming to Disney with teenagers. I think Saratoga Springs is exceptional for them because I just think back to, being 14, 15, 16, finally getting
Like
that
4
little
years
bit,
ago.
yeah, finally getting that little bit of freedom though, where mom's kind of like, you know what, you want to go off on your own, go off on your own. And with that, I think of things like the monorail resorts and being able to access to the parks really easily. But also I think of Saratoga Springs. Families all tuckered out at nighttime, like 8, 9 o'clock. Teenagers still got energy in them and want to head over to Disney Springs, see some live music, walk around some stores. And you feel really cool kind of just being out with you and like your sister or you and your friend or whatever situation it is. You feel really cool as a teenager, and that becomes like a very memorable experience. So for families with teenagers, like from the 13 to 16 age frame, that you kind of start giving them a little bit of freedom, I think Saratoga Springs Congress Park might be one of the funnest bets for them.
Sean, you have a very nonplussed look on your face.
I'm not a Saratoga Springs fan. I really am not. I mean, the cons for me greatly outweigh the pros. I don't think it really has a lot going for it. It doesn't have anything for me. I could pay less money to buy a contract at Old Key West, which I think is significantly better. I know you don't get as many years.
Is that true? Is Old Key West cheaper than
About the same price. Old Key West currently is like 95 to 105, and Saratoga's 98 to 107. I mean, they're
points
about the
chart is
same.
less.
Yeah.
Their vacation points that
Yeah.
costs you to go there are
Less expensive at Old
Yeah.
Key West. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so
kind of a cool
I feel
thing.
like I could stay longer. I feel like Old Key West is a much better overall experience than Saratoga Springs is for the most part. Most of the time looking at the contracts, I've always seen it as like Old Key West being lower. And even if it's around the same pricing, I get that you do lose the 12 years there of not having it, right? Yeah, 12.
Yeah.
Not having it quite as long as the other. But I still would just go with Old Key West. I might even pay a couple more. If the timing on it was that big of a deal, it's not a lot more to just go with Animal Kingdom Lodge instead. I mean, you're talking a couple dollars a point extra for the most part. So I would just go over there and get 3 more years than Saratoga Springs if that was important. Like Pete had said, it's the food is not good. It's not. If you have to leave, it's nice that you can leave to go to Disney Springs, but you also kind of have to leave to go to Disney Springs because
nothing else?
every restaurant at Disney Springs, even their quick service at Disney Springs, is better than the stuff there. It's always felt very apartment complex to me. It's very similar to a lot of the apartment complexes around the Kissimmee area and everything. So I don't like that about it. It is nice that big families can come, but you can do that at Old Key West. You could. I don't
See,
get it. I just don't get it.
One of my complaints, I was thinking about this while Fiasco was talking, about Artist Palette, is with a resort this expansive, could they not have had 2 separate spaces
For real.
for a food court and a merchandise location? Because they're all in one space, and the lines tend to intersect, like people lining up to pay for merchandise and people lining up to pay for food. I mean, the first time I was there, I'm like, where the hell am I going?
It's the same checkout line. So if you order food, you're like, I want a sandwich or whatever, you're going to go to the same checkout line as somebody who's buying pins or T-shirts. Like that's kind of ridiculous.
And it just gets insane. And so that was definitely a negative for me.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing that I wanted to add.
Let me finish. Yeah. On the pro side, though, the fact that you can get a room pretty much whenever. You don't have to worry too much about the 11-month window here. Hell, you don't have to worry about the 7-month window here. Invariably, the number of times I go to look for something and everything else is sold out, but I can have my pick of any area or any type of room at Saratoga. That is a plus. Now, my family has this bad habit. I'm starting to break them of it, but they have this bad habit of calling me 3 weeks ahead of time. Hey, we're coming down. Well, enjoy Saratoga because it's the only place I can put you. Another big plus for this place, and I think you'll agree, Fiasco, the spa. I think the spa at Saratoga is the best one on property. It always was. Prior to, back in the days when it was the Disney Institute, that spa was amazing. And then they sold the concession to Nikki Bryan salons, and those spas went downhill. And then Disney took back over the spas a few years back, and they've restored them to their former glory. But that spa is incredible.
Yeah, their census is amazing. And I think every census on property has their own highlight, but overall I would agree that Saratoga Springs is a complete slam dunk. But another thing that I kind of thought about while Sean was talking, because he mentioned Animal Kingdom Lodge, I just stayed there last week, and it was the one-bedroom Animal Kingdom Lodge, probably one of my favorite stays really ever, because you just open up your window, look out at the savannah, and you see all the giraffes. It's awesome. But one glaring issue that I noticed was we were over in Kidani, was room service closed at 10. So when we were back in the rooms and we were still kind of hungry, we really had no options other than either trying to grab a last-minute reservation at like Jico for one of the end times, or walking over to the Mara, which is on the other side of Animal Kingdom Lodge. It's kind of far. But with Saratoga Springs, granted their room service isn't anywhere near the same level as all the other DVC resorts like Poly and Bay Lake Tower. They all have better room service in my opinion. What you do have is you, again, have Disney Springs. And whether or not you are located in Congress Park, which is the section that's right there on the path to Disney Springs, fun fact, you can actually DoorDash both Wolfgang Puck Express and Earl of Sandwich.
Ooh.
So that's pretty cool.
That's good to know. I didn't know that.
That's good to know.
Here's the thing about room service at Saratoga. It's coming out of the same kitchen that's shoveling out that slop they're serving now in the food court and in Turf Club. So they may have great hours and stuff for their room service, but
At one point,
I don't imagine the food's very good.
One point I would like to make, and this is just something I've been told. I've never been to the actual Saratoga Springs, and everything in what's it based
New York.
off of? In New York,
Yeah.
New York. So I've never actually been there, but everyone I've spoken to that's been there and been to Saratoga Springs Resort at Disney has essentially been like, it's not nearly as nice as the actual Saratoga Springs is. And we do talk about caricatures of things a lot. And, when people go to Animal Kingdom Lodge, people will say, like, oh my God, like the safari there, or the theming and everything is like being in Africa. It's very authentic. It's very this. And from what I've always heard was that even the theming at Saratoga Springs really isn't anything to write home about compared to the real Saratoga Springs.
Well, you have to bear in mind that it wasn't built as Saratoga Springs. It was built as Disney Village, I believe, was the original resort that was there was called the Disney Village. Then it became, Jane Eisner had this brilliant idea that people should be taught things on vacation, and they came up with the Disney Institute, which, surprise, surprise, failed miserably. Although my parents loved it. Mm-hmm. My parents loved Disney Institute. And then they made it into a DVC resort and turned it into Saratoga Springs. So this resort has had 3 iterations since it was built. So I think that, what they basically did was put a Saratoga overlay. We're going to put a jockey on a horse out in front, and we're going to add some things inside. I think that's why that's.
But I mean, that wouldn't
still legitimate.
It wouldn't fly with anything else. You could not do that with Polynesian. You couldn't do that with build a building and throw some tiki torches in it. It's just not. You can't do that.
Why I agree. I understand why they did it. It's like, what are we going to do with this?
Right.
What are we going to do with this? Pete. He's like waving
I've been
his
pretty
hand
quiet.
at me.
I've been pretty quiet so far, but I did want to interrupt. I'm not a fan at all of Saratoga Springs. We stayed there actually. Our first stay as DVC owners we stayed there for 4 days, and I have no desire to go back. Jackie's mention of it feels like kind of homey and not a lot of Disney theme to it. That to me is one of the for me is a negative, because when I go to Disney, I want to feel like I'm in Disney 24/7. And when I was at Saratoga Springs, I kind of felt like I was at a timeshare, and none of the other resorts feel like I'm at a timeshare. On the positive, I will say the restructuring they did a couple years ago of the points, so that now it used to be all rooms were the same points, and now they have like a standard rate and a preferred rate. That actually made cheaper rooms, which was nice, because their point price was a little bit high. So it's nice that they have some rooms that are on par with like Old Key West and things like that. The other thing I want to mention, this only applies to a small portion of people, but if you like to golf, this location has the golf course right at it. So if you're a golfer that wants to spend, a day or two of your vacation golfing, it's a good location to be at, because you got the golf course right there. But overall, it's not. I would actually rather be at a moderate.
That's what I said. I said that for our video that we did for the Thanksgiving thing. I would rather go stay at a moderate. I would rather go stay any of the moderates than I would to stay at Saratoga Springs.
What about
and
the
it's half the
Mickeys?
cost.
What about the Mickeys that are on the siding?
I don't care about that.
They're
What do you-
so
I would
cute.
just stay.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's looking at the DIS review resort review database, which I encourage, if you have stayed at any resort, Disney, DVC or otherwise, at Disney World in the last year, please head over and enter in a review. We're going to be basing a lot of things that we do in the coming months off these reviews, but this is interesting. 72 reviews now in the system for Saratoga, an 84% rating, which sounds good, but when you consider that, Old Key West is getting an 87, Copper Creek a 92, Boulder Ridge, another one in desperate need of a rehab, is getting 90%. It is tied for Polynesian Villas.
Oh, wow.
For the lowest rated, and Polynesian's getting Polynesian is getting hammered because the housekeeping has been so bad. We are seeing so many reports
What a shame.
on social media of these rooms being filthy when people check in. So whereas, and we used to have that with Yacht Club, just why I'm loving these reviews. Yacht Club is now among one of the highest rated deluxe resorts on our little review engine here, a review area, because they've made some changes, and that's why all this stuff is cyclical. I think once this rehab of Saratoga is done, if they marry that with not a slight improvement, but a massive improvement in the food, I think the attitude towards Saratoga may change. We've seen people, staying in the new rooms, posting them on social, saying, "I never cared for Saratoga, but this room is gorgeous." I think it's going to have an impact. I think it may make the resales for Saratoga more popular.
They're extremely popular. Like Saratoga is a very popular resort for resale because people buy it for value. Again, that we sell a lot of Saratoga Springs. And
How many do I have? 250?
I think so.
Saratoga?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I think for people out there that are interested in this, and if this is your thing, like now is the best time to buy Saratoga Springs, because as soon as the refurbishment's done, the price is definitely going to go up because it's rehabbed and it's did you notice that with Old Key West at all? Because I mean,
Not
they
really.
just had their rehab.
No, I mean, people that have stayed at Old Key West after the rehab were interested, but Old Key West has always kind of had its own following. A lot of people
I'm
like.
going to tell you,
I
that
loved
rehab,
amazing.
at Old Key West,
Yeah.
I love it.
I think they're the best rooms of any DVC resort
Yeah, they're nice.
that I've stayed in.
love Old Key West.
Size-wise, design-wise.
Right.
Point
the-
cost-wise, it's
Point
cheap.
cost, that's what I'm saying.
But
Like, I just don't get why.
Even if it wasn't, the size of the rooms and how beautifully they did that rehab, it's unbelievable. We're staying there in a couple weeks. We're doing a land sea kind of thing. We're taking my mom, Sean and I, and Denny Sunderly and Mom are going on a 4-night cruise. I added 2 nights to the front of it for Sean and I and Mom in a 2-bedroom at Old Key West. So we're really, really excited to do that. We have some fun stuff planned for vlogs Mom's going to be vlogging from the cruise, which she's still. It's so. I was talking to her about it last night. She's like, I'm like, Ma, they love you. You know, I hear it all the time. They want to see you on vlog. She's like, I don't understand.
Yep.
People do talk about the pool as well at Saratoga Springs. I have heard good feedback
so
about the
good.
pool.
Yeah, it's a nice
People
pool. Yeah, they've
enjoying
got
it.
multiple
I've never
pools,
used
but,
it, but yeah, whatever the main pool is, I can't think of it off the top of my
it's
head.
nice.
But I have heard good feedback about that. But I mean,
The one that looks like horse racing is the kids love it too.
yeah.
And again, I know that some of the review happening here is it's not necessarily favorable to Saratoga Springs, but look at me as an example. I bought Saratoga. I've never stayed there. It works. You can exchange other places with the exception of Riviera, but you can buy there and at a great value and use it around. So,
Oh yeah, I mean that's the only reason that I would buy that. I mean, it's great that they're doing the rehab on the rooms, but I mean, lipstick on a pig for me. So I don't know. So I would rather stay at a moderate resort.
Wow.
Even when you're talking cash prices, Saratoga Springs is always over $400. It's always ranges around maybe the high 300s, low 400s. You could stay on a moderate for like $225, $250 a lot of the times and get like a preferred view and stuff. I just don't need it. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's our look at the pros and cons of Saratoga Springs. That will do it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week with another edition of the DVC show. Have a great week, folks.